The new catchphrase from the federal government over climate change seems to be technology, not taxation. And in response to media questions about reducing carbon emissions, the Prime Minister told the National Press Club his mind was made up.
The answer is not more taxes and increased global bureaucracy, but practical change driven by science and technology that allows companies and economies to develop and commercialise new technologies that are accessible, affordable and scalable the world over.
So, under a Morrison government, carbon emission targets set and agreed to under the UN's Paris Agreement will remain right where they are. Now, my gut tells me that this has the potential to bring down his government. Now, before you think I've been gulping down the green cordial with all the others, I think Scott Morrison is entirely correct. Given our minuscule carbon emissions, we cannot make a scintilla of difference to the temperature of the planet, and therefore no difference to what may occur when bushfires rage again during this and future summer seasons. The chief scientist has admitted as much too. But the reason I think it has the potential to bring the government down is that the global warming scaremongers have fooled the population. And I'm one of those who believe that we have warmed. I'll get onto that in just a second. Look at all those school-age rallies for climate change. The posters and the chants are critical of a government they think can change our climate if they stop man-made CO2 emissions. Wrong. All the universities are echoing that scientific impossibility as well. And even the likes of Malcolm Turnbull, the president of the old miserable ghost club, is driving the same stupidity.
I do not know why Scott Morrison has acted the way he has. I mean, to be, very frank with you, I worked with him very closely. I've known him for 20 years at least, and I can't explain his conduct.
What he has done? Well, what he has done is kept his promise and the promise of this country on the Paris Agreement under the auspices of the United Nations. That's what he has done, as you did, Malcolm Turnbull, when you were the Prime Minister. And then you've got to add the sheer horror of what we've all just experienced with bushfires. That has clearly pushed many more Australians to believe that this is not normal. But this is the result of drought that has not been unprecedented, leading to mammoth fires that are also not unprecedented. And a Google check of the lives we lost in drought in 1896 will tell you that. And our death toll from fires 100 years ago, including in the 20s, was much worse as well. But fear is a strong motivator. And today we get more of the same deceptive messages from a group of 81 scientific laureates. Now, it is really hard to ridicule the knowledge of 81 scientific laureates, and most people won't attempt to. But you only need to read the letter they published in the Herald and the Age today to see they're on a more moral and political campaign, not necessarily just scientific. The letter was championed and created by Stephen Sherwood from the very well-resourced Climate Change Research Centre at the UNSW in Sydney. It states, the scale and ferocity of the recent fires are unprecedented since European settlement of this country. False. How is that measured? Well, they don't say how they measured it, but it goes on. The increasing variability of rainfall across Australia, bringing more dry years, is a consequence of climate change. Well, yes, the Earth has warmed by an average of 1 degree Celsius in the last 50 years, 1.6 approximately in the last 115 years. Now, the laureates welcome the government's acceptance of a role for climate change in the catastrophe. But this is not enough, they tell us, not enough. This dire outlook demands stronger mitigation of carbon emissions. And that's when they lose the argument, because they've all signed off on Australia being the world influencer for the big emitters. They actually think that if we went to a zero emission status here, the world would follow and solve climate change. This is a political agenda. So China, India and the US will suddenly reverse all their baseload power plans using coal-fired stations and gas, will they? Really? Based on which fairy tale? They also say that if we look and took this lead, it would not cost us more. Well, no research paper I've seen has come up with that very hopeful conclusion. So this has all of a sudden become an economic campaign. The letter should have been sent to the leaders of the world's biggest emitters. By the way, they make no reference to Australia halting all coal exports to the world. That's crucial. Maybe because they also know the scientific fact that the likes of China and India will just use their own low-quality brown coal and heat the planet even further. But as I say, the letter is a powerful message to those who have not been given and across all the scientific facts. The laureates conclude by making this heartfelt plea about owing this action to younger generations and those who come after them who will bear the brunt of our decisions. But that's not Australia's place to change it. They cannot change it. The government needs to keep explaining this, explaining what Australia is incapable of doing and which countries may have the ability to change rainfall and temperature. I think this will be a crucial battleground again at the next election, but this time, thanks to a wave of moralising over carbon emissions and, don't underestimate the impact these bushfires have, the quiet Australians are definitely wavering.